Hello DCAC members, thank you for watching this video about the Program Participation Report to prepare for our upcoming meeting and discussion. All of our reports are connected to our strategic plan areas. In this slide, we'd identified some of the connections to the areas in our strategic plan. These include improving learning for students of color, American Indian students, English learners, students receiving special education services, and pre-kindergarten learners. In this category, we highlighted two areas that we find are essential to our student participation: strengthening relationships between staff and students of color and American Indian students, and increasing staff expectations for students of color and American Indian students. The second strategic plan area that is important to this work is strengthening the support for the social and emotional development of students, especially by enhancing staff expertise to better meet the social and emotional needs of all students, and improving transitions from pre-K to elementary, elementary to middle level to high school, and high school to career and college for all students. We know that students can feel more connected to school and show improvement in their academics when they participate in activities, athletics, or clubs. We also know relationships with teachers can impact a lifetime for students, and having high expectations for all of our students helps them achieve at high levels. Lessening the impact of transitions also helps students stay connected to school and their learning. There are three areas that are a part of our program participation report: the advanced academics and talent development, activities and athletics, and special education. This next section is about advanced academics and talent development, formerly known as gifted and talented. The following data represents formally identified students in grades 3 through 12. Our students in K through 2 are considered informally identified for the advanced academics and talent development program and are not included in this data. As you'll see in the next graph, a representative amount is considered 1.0. This proportion is used to uncover over and underrepresentation by student groups. Again, this slide represents our over and underrepresentation in identified students for our advanced academics and talent development program. You can see the student groups are listed on the left here. And again, the representation or a proportionate amount is considered 1.0. So this line here. As you can see, most of our groups of students of color, English learners, students who receive free or reduced price meals, and students who receive special education services are all underrepresented, while white students are overrepresented by about 1.5 times. We have changed our identification process this year to include local norms as well as national norms. We believe this will have an increased impact on the student groups who are historically underrepresented in gifted and talented education programs. We also continue to work on our practices for identification and services to move towards our vision of an advanced academics and talent development away from a gifted and talented program for some to practices that we can include more students with a focus on our talent development. We'll now shift to activities which pertain to grades 7-12. Activities are grouped into 4 categories: academic groups, athletics, clubs, and fine arts. This is a visual example of what our secondary activities entail. As you can see, there is a wide range of opportunities for students to engage in. If you want to pause this slide to look through some of those clubs and activities, you sure can. This pie graph provides us with a look at the percentage of students participating in each of the categories. As you can see, the majority of students participate in athletics, with 46%. Fine arts has the second highest percentage of students that are participating. But keep in mind that these are fine arts activities that are happening outside of the school day as extracurricular activities. These do not include the fine arts courses that happen during the school day. Clubs and academics make up the last pieces of the pie chart, with 16% participating in clubs and 11% participating in academic type programs. This graph provides data for the 5-year trend of activities, which includes all of the 4 categories. We look at this data broken down by race to measure if there are any disparities within our student groups. As you can see, we have put an asterisk on the 2019-2020 school year and the 2020-21 school year, as both of these years were significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. During the 3rd trimester of 2020, we did not offer athletics and activities, as this was the beginning of distance learning. During the 2020-2021 school year, secondary schools were in distance learning throughout the first 2 trimesters, and participation numbers were impacted. We do see a trend that our white students participated in higher numbers than our BIPOC students over these 2 pandemic years. This is a trend that matches our numbers for students who are participating during in-person school compared to students who decided to remain in distance learning. We will now move into discussing students who are referred to special education or receive special education services. This first slides are focused on initial referrals for special education evaluation. Initial referrals are students who have met initial criteria to be evaluated for special education. Students who are evaluated may or may not qualify for specialized services or instruction based on the evaluation. And students may or may not be evaluated based on that initial referral. The following data is monitored to determine over and underrepresentation of student groups. This graph provides information about students who were referred to special education, so these students may have qualified for special education services or may not have met the criteria for services in special education. Again, we look at this data by race to measure whether we have disparities in our data. We do see an increase in our Black students who were referred last year and an increase of our students of color overall. Students who are Hispanic and Asian showed a trend towards representative proportions. White students and multiracial students trended down in referrals last year, bringing them both below proportionate numbers. This next slide provides a look at students that are currently served in special education. The slide differs from the previous slides, as the students represented in this data set are students who have been referred, qualified for, and are currently served in special education. This graph represents students who were receiving special education services during the past year, broken down by race. We continue to see a more representative proportions of students served in special education by race. However, some of our student groups continue to be outside of our proportionate range. We continue to have an overrepresentation of American Indian students serviced in special education, as well as our students who identify as multiracial. We'll have time for questions and discussion at our upcoming DCAC meeting. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on April 25th.